All right, we are here for what I'm honestly guessing is episode 2 because I'm pretty sure I forgot to save the actual episode 2 and I went onto the platform that I was planning on editing on and I went to look for the file and I was like, "Excuse me, where are you?" MIA. I have some video footage of the podcast episode, but I kind of feel like I was just kind of chaotic anyway, so I'm like, "Okay, maybe I'll just refine it and do it again. Maybe it's a sign that it would have been a dumpster fire." But I don't know. Maybe you want a dumpster fire, and maybe you don't. And if you don't, then good thing I lost the footage. I kind of wanted to go over this topic of networking because tonight I am actually going to a movie screening. I'm so excited, a little bit nervous, which is kind of insane because I'm really not expected to do anything but sit there and watch other people do their jobs. It's a different experience when you see people on TV versus seeing them in person, even if it's from a distance. If any of you have already seen my online brand, Chicopedia, based off of my fashion blog, these jogger pants are what I'm wearing tonight. And I paired it with this button down, and it's like this, gosh, what is this print? We'll just say squiggles, but I know there's such a sophisticated word for it, and I cannot remember it right now. But anyways, this squiggly button down, and I feel like it's leaning into an aesthetic that's more edgy than I am. I feel like I'm not edgy enough for this, which actually kind of goes into my conversation in this episode, which is when you feel out of place. Networking, what do you do and how do you navigate a room full of people that you either want to work with, hope to work with, dream to work with, or kind of want something from? And I mean, want something from in that, like, for example, me, I'm an actor. And so I next week have a networking event where I'm meeting a few casting directors. And I love going to these. I think they're so fun. Very intimidating, though. Very intimidating to be in an environment, navigating a room and networking with people that, I mean, you kind of do want something from. How do you approach a situation like a networking event where you're surrounded by, we'll just say superiors, but I don't love that terminology, but you know what I mean. Superiors. You're surrounded by superiors. You're surrounded by people who you would love to work with, or you're surrounded by people that you hope will give you an opportunity at some point in the future, whether it be in the acting world or whether it be, I mean, even in the STEM world. I speak mostly within the creative industry just because that's what I'm familiar with, but even just in conversations with my friends who are doing a completely different path than me, I recognize there's so many commonalities, even with the stress levels, the competitiveness. I mean, it's everywhere. It's not just within Hollywood. I just think the fact that Hollywood is quite literally put on the big screen, it's just a lot more visible. What I wanted to dive into a little bit before I head out in, oh my goodness, less than an hour, is feeling either inadequate or not good enough, not ready enough, or inferior. It's this weird situation with networking where it's like deep down you know why they exist, because there's always going to be future generations, there's always going to be new minds, new ideas, and new contributions to the world. But it's when we're in this dynamic where we have people that are just so accomplished and have their resumes full, their credits completely like booked, it feels so intimidating to be coming in as a novice and then expect to be taken seriously. And even in a low stakes situation where I am really not expected to do anything but quite literally go sit and watch other people do their jobs, do their panels, do their interviews, and watch their work and actually critique their work, I still feel a sense of nerves. And I'm sure that the same is likely to have been experienced on your end too in some capacity. And it's like, why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we make ourselves feel like we don't belong in the places that we actually want to be in? It's really hard to recognize that in addition to proving yourself to the world, which I kind of lagged on that word because I don't want to suggest that that's what you have to do. But in a way, I mean, we all are striving to prove ourselves, maybe not to other people, but if only to ourselves. It makes it all the more difficult when we become our own worst enemies. There is always going to be this experience where we feel like we're not the most experienced in the room. We are worthy of the rooms that we want to be in. However, if we don't believe that we're worthy of being in those rooms, how in the world are we going to effectively and impactfully convince others that we actually are? I do believe to an extent the idea of faking it until you make it, but a really good point that was brought up in my conversation with a mentor earlier today was that energy radiates. Your energy radiates. That's something that I really want to emphasize because I, for one, have been a person that has really, really, really tried my hardest to fake it until I've made it. And there is a certain limit to that, I feel like. I don't think that carries you all the way to the top, metaphorically speaking. I think you do have to have some degree of self confidence, self esteem, self assurance in order to carry yourself through these tiers and these barriers and these obstacles that are muddied with opinions and false narratives and contradicting perspectives. So, first off, I think if you're feeling unsure about whether or not you belong in a specific room, my first question would be why? I had to do a little bit of an investigation. And I realized in the very beginning stages of my networking, I was going to say networking career, but honestly, like true. It literally is a job. But in the very beginning stages of my networking journey, I recognized that I had a lot of subconscious and conscious embarrassment. And I had to sit down and think. I was like, why am I feeling so embarrassed? Like, I am in the beginning stages of my career. Yeah, I don't have a lot of projects yet. I did some self-tape work, for example, and I put those monologues up. And, I have little bits and pieces. And I came to the realization that this embarrassment was coming from the fact that I know deep down that I did not put everything that I could into the materials that I had curated. Some of those self tape monologues I was not proud of. I did not want to watch them. And if you can't watch your own work, if you can't look at your own work, how in the world are you going to expect to confidently show others your work, let alone people that are critiquing it and are kind of keeping it in the front, back, side, middle of their heads to give them an idea of whether or not they want to work with you? And even better yet, take a chance on you. So, my first question would be, why are you feeling uncomfortable? Is it something that you could be improving within your portfolio? Is there something that you're lacking? Is there something that you neglected? What is it that's the root cause of this discomfort? And if you kind of are struggling to come up with an immediate answer, then I would say start writing stuff down. Maybe look up some interview questions and go through the list. And when it comes to portfolio, sense of self, working with others, all of these different targets that make up being in a job position, go through them and think about every aspect and see, am I confident in this part? Am I confident in that part? What could I improve here? And that might give you some sort of insight as to why you're feeling this discomfort. And so that is the first thing. You cannot, in my opinion, fully rely on faking it until you make it, because say you have the best portfolio ever. Actually, no. Say you have the worst portfolio ever. Say you have the absolute worst portfolio ever, but you come off as extremely confident and kind. There is a possibility that people will resonate with you so strongly that they'll overlook it. However, if you don't have the goods to back it up, you're just going to be deemed as a really cool and nice person, but quote unquote doesn't have what it takes. And that is not necessarily true, but you have to put the work in. I was having a conversation with one of my closest friends, and I was actually picking her brain about her own sense of confidence and her perspective on herself and her worth and whatnot. And she very confidently said that she is very proud of all of the work that she does. She knows that when she does something, she does it to her very best extent. And that brings a sense of confidence. And honestly, that conversation brought to light some areas that I could be improving so that I can have that edge of confidence in my own career as well. So, the next thing that I want to talk about is this idea of perception and how you're perceived. Even as I bring it up, I know this is hitting home because I am working through this very big roadblock of letting go of other people's perceptions of me. When I'm in a conversation, especially, oh my gosh, especially in a networking event or something where I feel kind of on edge, maybe a little bit insecure, even like with a crush. I am the type of person that will have a conversation, like carry myself through it, high energy, seemingly, and, just being the very most authentic self that I can be in that moment. But then after I leave that conversation, literally, I will rate myself on a scale of 1 to 10. Like, okay, did that come off weird? Like, how did I feel like my vibe was? Did that come off as authentic? Could that have been misinterpreted? Was that funny? Should I not have said that? Was that confusing? Like, what did I do that was wrong? Yeah, this topic of perception is definitely something that I am working through. So, as I'm talking to you today, I really, really, really hope that you know that I understand it. If you are the type of person that runs through the whole context of the conversation that you just had after leaving, I get it. But it's actually so unhealthy. And I feel like also it kind of dissolves your sense of self trust, right? Because can we not have a conversation without doubting our ability to make a good impression and carry ourselves through it with grace and elegance and class? Why do we do this to ourselves? We are not meant to be put under a magnifying glass. I mean, my gosh, I'm pretty sure that people that we just had a conversation with aren't even thinking about it that deeply. At the end of the day, I mean, I keep having to read quotes. Nobody cares as much as you think that they do. You are the person that cares more than anyone about what you do. We care about other people, yes, but the lens and the eyes are always on ourselves. Like we are always looking at ourselves and reflecting on ourselves and thinking about ourselves more than we are other people. We have to let go of this fear and this paranoia that we are incapable because it's just not true. And so what? So what if you said something that was a little bit confusing and maybe the other person really didn't know what you were talking about, but just kind of smiled and nodded? Who cares? Oh my gosh, we are just human beings. Also, this book that I'm reading is actually contesting that. And they're like, you are not a human being. You are not, you are like, I don't know, some sort of like spiritual greatness that's only inhabiting the body. I'm not even going to get into that right now. But imagine how peaceful it would feel to just take off that weight of self criticism and just allow yourself to be. Like, just think about what kind of person would you be if you weren't so fixated on this perception, on this idea, on this character that you want to play. Because honestly, at the end of the day, when we look back on ourselves so much and censor ourselves and edit and cut and copy and duplicate, kind of like I will be doing for this voiceover episode, when we edit ourselves that much, we kind of dilute our authenticity. It's like we want to become this robot. We want to become this perfectly well spoken person, but it's just like that's not real. And people at the end of the day, more than the most well spoken person in the room, will connect with the person that's most authentic. Let me just bring this up, and I might even think that I'm wrong in this segue, but what is being the most well spoken. What does it mean really to be the most well spoken? I think to a degree, being the most well spoken doesn't have to do with your level of education, experience. I think it really just has to do with how much of an impact you can make on people. And of course, you see, I mean, me, for example, I became way more well spoken having gone to college and doing different public speaking classes. And that helped me break out of my shell. But not everybody goes through that same pathway and gets to that same goal. Some people kind of skip a few steps, some people don't need to do that at all. So it's just let go. Let go of this need to filter yourself. You're not coffee. Allow yourself the room and the grace and even the opportunity to make those mistakes, to fumble on your words, to say something that's confusing. Allow yourself the space to make those errors, because that's actually what helps us become stronger and more well spoken and honestly more confident, more self assured, and more capable. When we're able to get through those situations that are a bit uncomfortable and kind of unwanted, that's when we really develop that thick skin. It's kind of going into that whole topic of the more you do it, the better you get. The problem is we don't always want to do it because it's scary and it's hard. And doing it means that we are putting ourselves in a vulnerable position. We are putting ourselves out there and opening ourselves up. But that, to me, is just one of the most important things that you can do with your time in this world. Open yourself up, allow yourself to be received. Just think about the fact that there are so many people that are already so impressed by you and impacted by you. You don't even know how many conversations, whether it's a quick moment of passing or this long, 3, 4 hour conversation where you have changed someone's perspective, changed someone's life, opened up someone's mind. You never know how many times you have been that person to someone. And honestly, it's in the moments that are the least thought about that we kind of sometimes make the most impact. It's those little exchanges. It's that thank you. It's that compliment. It's that little piece of advice that we give no mind to that really makes a difference. And why? Because it's real. Another point that I really want to cover, because I find it so impactful to just remember, is that everyone started as a beginner. Everyone started as a beginner. You do have your exceptions that just were born masterminds, but everybody is a beginner at something. And so when you are feeling this discomfort of being like me, like a developmental talent, or being a novice, being a newbie, how exciting is that? How exciting is that to be able to be in a position where it's okay to make mistakes? It's expected for you to make mistakes. Embrace it. Embrace it and learn from it and celebrate it, because growth is the best thing that you can ever do. Okay, I actually gotta go. I'll talk to you later. Bye.